Halo 2 has been one of the most highly anticipated games probably ever because the original game was so outstanding. It is a large part of why the Xbox has been so successful. It was truly the Xbox's original killer app, and it made good on its promises by having just this really amazing action and these really great vehicles along with the on-foot action and a multiplayer that kept people playing for long after they finished the campaign. So the story is really what gripped people in the original Halo. The multiplayer kept them coming back up until now. Halo 2 has to make good on all this stuff, and for the most part, it does. Really, once again, plays outstanding. It plays like hardly any first-person shooters out there, just in terms of the really minor points of the gameplay. Just subtle things about how it work very, very well. It's a lot more fun to play than most other shooters, and it just delivers a lot of these exciting moments time and time again, both when you're playing online and when you're playing in co-op mode and when you're playing solo. With that said, the game has a few shortcomings, especially in its story. The story ends with a cliffhanger ending that hits you like a freight truck and will probably leave you sorely disappointed. Especially if you get to that ending in the first sitting, which is possible if you're kind of a rabid Halo fan and are willing to sit there for 8 or 10 hours in one stretch to get through the campaign. So it's pretty short on top of having a story that's pretty unfulfilling. So does that make Halo 2 a bad game? Of course it doesn't. The gameplay is what matters, and it plays really spectacularly, and it has this online mode that's going to keep you coming back for as long as it takes until, you know, who knows, the next Halo game finally rolls around. It has the legs, it has the excellent graphics and the really amazing audio, but it also has these two kind of noticeable warts to keep it from the sheer perfection that some sort of expected of this game and after how long it's been in development. Halo 2's campaign really isn't that different from that of the first game. It has everything about Halo's campaign that was great and everything about Halo's campaign that wasn't so great. Most people remember Halo's campaign because it offered these really dynamic battles against this really smart AI. The enemies you'll be fighting against will dodge around, they'll use cover, they'll run away to regroup, they'll try to flank you, all kinds of stuff like that. So even if you have to replay the same fight over and over again, it still tends to be pretty different each time you try it, especially since there tend to be tons of weapons lying around, so you can try to take advantage of different tactical situations, and you'll often have friendly Marines fighting alongside you and their vehicles flying around, so things are blowing up, things are crazy, and things are exciting and a lot of fun, especially since you've got your good old melee attacks, a personal favorite of mine, so you can always clobber a foe when you're right next to him, and that'll often do him in. Then again, Halo had these certain problems, such as how the level design started to become very repetitive and very monotonous after a while, to the point where it could be pretty confusing. These things are true of Halo 2's campaign also. There are certain stretches that get to be a little tedious as far as, the scenery is concerned. The action itself is still totally top-notch from the beginning to the bitter end, but you're not going to be seeing, tons of spectacular scenery the whole time, and in fact the scenery itself, as well as most of the enemies you'll be fighting against, are pretty much similar to those of the original Halo. So the game takes an if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach, and for the most part that's a very good thing because Halo, the original game, has yet to be surpassed. Of course, Halo 2 does have some new bits. It's not just a total rehash of the first one. Early on, you'll be defending Earth from the Covenant, which is pretty impressive. I mean, you'll be running through the streets, sometimes in a Warthog, sometimes at the turret of a Warthog, taking down droves of Covenant. Lots of them are riding in Ghosts this time, and it's just a pretty exciting sequence, especially since there are lots of nasty snipers around trying to pick you off. And it's really an amazing setup, and it makes you think that Halo 2 is going to stay there. But in fact, the game takes you away from Earth pretty early on, and you spend most of the game in different places, and in fact not focusing on the Master Chief's adventures. Instead, the game really includes a lot of material about the Covenant, and now it sort of paints the story from the Covenant's perspective in addition to the human perspective, where you'll get to learn a lot about the trials and tribulations of the Covenant and some of their political upheavals and what have you. So there's this big secondary part of the storyline now, and these enemies that you've been indiscriminately killing in the original Halo are now supposed to be these sort of sympathetic creatures that are, you know, in the wrong war or something like that. So it's sort of a weird twist. It's not necessarily something that Halo fans are going to like very much, because they just want to focus on the killing of the Covenant and so forth, as opposed to on their, you know, misunderstandings. And again, since the story ends on sort of a dour note, all in all, the campaign isn't as satisfying as that of the original game, and might leave you pretty frustrated. As mentioned, though, actually playing the campaign is a whole lot of fun, since you'll be facing off against these tough enemies the whole time. From a technical standpoint, the campaign is quite impressive. There's basically no loading time at all, which is pretty cool. In the previous Halo, there were some occasional loading times in between the main chapters, but here they're totally hidden. Instead, you just get these split-second pauses every now and then, and in between these miles and miles of combat zones. Saving and loading is also handled extremely well. It's just totally transparent. If you die, you just pop back in, and basically you never have to manually save the game. You could just concentrate on the action. This is all the more reason why you might just blow through the campaign in 1 or 2 sittings. As for the AI, as mentioned, it's as impressive as ever, because the enemy just makes for a dynamic and rather intelligent opponent. So even though the game isn't too tough, you can always retreat and recharge your energy shields or try a different tactic or something like that. The enemy just keeps you guessing, and it keeps you entertained as you're trying to outsmart it. The AI does have a couple of flukes, such as how you'll notice that when it's in the driver's seat of vehicles, it can drive quite poorly at times. It'll run into walls and do some crazy stuff like that. And the friendly Marines you'll be fighting with don't help you a whole lot. But still, all in all, the artificial intelligence remains a highlight of Halo 2. It's too bad that you can't play the multiplayer modes with AI-controlled bots, because it seems like, you know, with just a little more adjustment, you could have been fighting against these guys practicing in some of the multiplayer modes. There are some key differences in Halo 2's gameplay compared to the first one. There are things like how your jump is higher and floatier this time around. You don't suffer any damage from falling anymore. These are kind of subtle tweaks. There's also no longer a health meter to worry about, which sounds like it's kind of a crazy change, but it's actually a really good thing. It means that, unlike in the original game, you just never have to worry about finding health packs. All you have to worry about are your shields. So for the most part, you're either at full health or you're about to die. It makes sort of a simpler approach to some of the sequences, and it makes you not have to run around, you know, looking for health packs in corners or annoying things like that. One of the other big changes is that it's now possible to dual wield some of the weapons that are smaller. This isn't exactly an original feature. It's been done back since Red Faction 2 and games like that, but Halo 2 implements it very well, both in single player and multiplayer. When you're dual wielding, of course, you can independently fire your weapons using the left and right triggers, and this gives you double the stopping power. At the same time, it means that you can't throw grenades, which, if you've played Halo, you know those are really effective. And it also means you can't execute your melee attack without dropping the offhand weapon first. So as a result, dual wielding is really quite well balanced. It's very useful in certain cases, but in other cases you don't want to use it, and of course with some of the bigger weapons, you can't use it. As for Halo 2's vehicles, they're mostly pretty much the same as those of the original game. You'll find the Warthog and the Ghost and the Banshee. All those are back here, and they're usable in single player and multiplayer. They've all undergone some enhancements, though, which makes them freshened up a bit and not seem like the same old thing. The